I liked the way you said that the graffiti actually brightens up the city.
I thought I'd sneak that one in there.
Whenever there's any opportunity to highlight a dad joke, then I'm all there for it. Despite not being a father, I am already a dad in this way with my jokes.
Welcome to English with Lewis. Let's go!
Hello, everybody, and welcome back once again to another episode of English with Lewis and my wonderful interviews, conversations, chats with other teachers and creators. And I'm delighted today to welcome Jordan from EnglishLingo. Hello.
Hello, thank you very much for having me. I'm honored to be here. Thank you very much.
The honor is all mine. And just before I started recording, I was explaining to Jordan that today I'm feeling a little bit tired, but I've just had 3 espressos, so now I'm buzzing.
Good British word there. I'm buzzing, right?
I'm excited and I'm buzzing with energy. Like, imagine a bee and the sound that a bee makes. It's like bzz, 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 always moving around, flying and trying to sting you. But bees are nice. It's the wasps that nobody likes.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Anyway, Jordan, for those who don't know you, introduce yourself. Tell us about you.
Thank you very much. My name is Jordan. I'm from the south of England, a small town called Eastbourne, to be exact, by the seaside. If you're familiar with Brighton, then it's very close to Brighton. I've been a teacher for around 15 years, just over. Most of my time was spent in Japan. However, I am now living in the Philippines, which is a major difference to living in Japan. And yeah, it's been a fun, interesting 15 years teaching English. So I've enjoyed it all.
Perfect, excellent. Now, first of all, I mentioned that I don't know Eastbourne, and I must confess that I've never been to Brighton either, but it's one of these places that usually people who visit England, they tend to go to London, and then after that, maybe they'll go to like Oxford, Cambridge, and Brighton. So what is Brighton like?
Brighton is a vibrant city. It's known for its creativity. We see a lot of graffiti on the walls. However, not the graffiti that is the bad kind. This is graffiti that is tastefully done. They are pictures of people, certain murals, and it really brightens up the city, actually. I would say it's a city that is quite young, and a lot of people from Brighton actually work in London. So it's got that connection to London due to the fact that it's quite close, around about 1 hour by train. So I think people like it because it's kind of young, vibrant, and quite a creative city.
And of course, you have the beach, which is always an added extra, an added advantage. And I liked the way you said that the graffiti actually brightens up the city.
I thought I'd sneak that one in there.
Whenever there's any opportunity to highlight a dad joke, then I'm all there for it. Despite not being a father, I am already a dad in this way with my jokes.
Oh, they're brilliant. The dad jokes are really funny. I must admit, I do sometimes find myself scrolling through a few videos on TikTok or other social media platforms and seeing the dad jokes and laughing a lot at them. Actually, they're very funny.
Exactly. You're laughing out loud. You're pissing yourself laughing.
True. Very
Lovely
true.
expressions. Now, so you mentioned Japan and the Philippines. We'll get there in
Yes.
a minute. But first, why did you become an English teacher?
Wow, great question. So initially, after university, I was thinking about going to Australia, as you mentioned yourself. You
Uh-huh.
did, but I didn't do that. I wanted to do something different to what other people around me were doing. So I went to Canada and I did exactly what you did. I spent 1 year on a working holiday visa in Canada, um, purely for snowboarding. I wanted to learn how to snowboard. So I was like, let me go to Canada and learn it, right? May as well do it for 6 months or whatever the season would be.
Mm-hmm.
And then the idea was to come back to England and get a job. My degree was law and business. So I was going to think about pursuing a career in that kind of field. And then the financial crash happened, which was 2008.
Yeah.
And that's when I went home and there were no jobs. But I met a lot of Japanese people out in Canada and they
Mm-hmm.
said, why don't you try and teach English in Japan? I was like, I've never thought about this before, but why not? I don't really have any opportunities at the moment. So
You were very
let's go.
easily convinced. It's like, why don't you
Yeah,
move
I
to Japan?
was.
It's like, okay.
Yeah. Never been there before, never understood any sort of words in Japanese. I was like, yeah, okay, maybe I'll try it. Looked at the requirements and they have a 1 year working holiday visa. I was like, okay, I'll go there for 1 year. And then 15 years later, I left. So yeah, one year turned into 15 years, and that was it really. But
Interesting.
I must admit, I found myself enjoying it. I liked the interaction. I liked the fact that I met a lot of interesting, quirky, different people. So for me, that was what kept me going teaching, and that's why I've done it for so long.
A nice adjective you used, quirky. Quirky is a little bit interesting, strange, weird, but usually in quite a positive way. It has a positive connotation. It's like Japan, for me, it seems very quirky because people are very into, I don't know, like cat cafes and lots of anime and stuff like that. It's very quirky, but in a nice way, and a weird in a positive way.
There's a running joke among the foreigners who live in Japan, and we have a saying, only in Japan, because whenever anything happens that we find a little bit strange, we're like, yeah, only in Japan. Like, you can't find that anywhere else in the world.
It's one of a kind.
It would never happen because it's not going to be, one, probably good to do. Two, it probably won't be having the same reaction. People won't react the same. For example, there's a hedgehog cafe in Tokyo. So they have little hedgehogs that you can go and pet or stroke and things.
But they have spikes. They're spiky.
I agree with you. People love it. People love them. There was one that I went to last year, which was a micro pig cafe.
Okay. I can see the attraction a little bit more here. That they're cute. I guess hedgehogs are cute as well.
True.
Hedgehogs are a little bit dangerous. Like if you want to stroke them, if you want to pet them,
yeah,
you're gonna cut yourself.
You're gonna hurt your hand. I know.
That actually reminds me that some people have seen my mom on my videos before. She's really, really friendly, really lovely. Everybody looks up to her and thinks like, oh, she's so sweet, isn't she? And another piece of evidence to show this is that she feeds 2 hedgehogs that come to our garden every single night, and she buys cat food for the hedgehogs. And she puts it out in the garden, and then you can hear the hedgehogs when they're coming around, like 8-9 o'clock. Whenever it gets dark, you can hear them making like almost like a pig noise. It's like and they start to make this strange noise. And then I have to be careful if I'm at home and I'm coming back after a night out or whatever, because then I could be walking and it's pitch black, and then I'm like, oh, a hedgehog. And it's spiky. So yeah, my mum would definitely visit this hedgehog cafe, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, that again, that's one of the, as you said, the quirky points, because probably in other countries, this wouldn't really be sanitary. They
Mhm.
wouldn't say, oh, you can't really have a cafe and animals per se. So, yeah, that's why I think Japan is very unique and quirky in that
Uh,
sense.
Only in Japan, only in
There we
Japan.
go.
And by the way, your first motivation for going to Canada was to learn how to snowboard. So,
Yes.
how did that go?
Great. I seem to pick it up quite quickly. I had skied previously, but I always had this kind of draw to snowboarding, and I think it was the cooler thing to do.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think nowadays skiing has become a little bit more mainstream and become a little bit more cooler in sort of what they wear and how people do ski. But yeah, it was great. It took a lot of, you know, falling over and getting back up, but I persevered with it. And because I was snowboarding every day,
Hmm.
uh, it seemed to me that I was able to pick it up a lot quicker than if I had done like 1 week this year, 1 week next year, as many people do. So for me, yeah, I was able to pick it up quite quickly, and it was so much fun. Yeah, I snowboarded with a lot of really cool people, a lot of Australians actually, and a lot of British people, Canadians, French people. Um, yeah, there's just a wide variety of people that were in Canada, and yeah, it was a great time. Really, really nice, fun experience.
No, no, it's something that I would 100% like to do. And personally, I've never tried snowboarding. I chose
Mm,
skiing when you're given that option of like, okay, which one do you
yeah.
go for? And
Yes.
I chose skiing because it was maybe easier and more
Mm.
people were doing it. So I kind of followed the crowd. I was a bit of a sheep with this. But the amount of experience I have going to mountains and skiing is very minimal. It's something I'd like to do more of. But then previously living in Spain, of course, you can do it, but usually
Mm.
it's quite expensive. And then Spain is more known for beaches and hot weather and stuff like that. So the season is quite short as well. But
Right.
I'd like to go on a skiing holiday because the sights are beautiful, the landscape is
Yeah.
amazing, and you don't get a hangover. So
True.
it's perfect.
Yeah. And I suppose for us being from the UK, it's very difficult in the sense that we don't really have anything available to us in our country. We have to go abroad to ski, to snowboard. So we're limited in that option, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. So anyway, you got to Japan, this quirky country, and
Mhm.
your English teaching, was it mainly for children? Was it in company? What kind of
Mm.
classes did you tend to teach?
So I started out as a elementary school teacher.
Okay.
So I was teaching in an elementary school in Tokyo. That was my first ever job. And with no experience, I was just thrown in to a class with
Hmm.
35 kids and just basically told, there you go, please
What could
teach.
go wrong, you know?
So I had no time really to be nervous. I had to get over my nerves extremely quickly because
Uh,
I had never taught in my life before, and it was quite a daunting, situation to be in. You're the focal point, you're the one that everybody's looking at. Even the Japanese teacher is like taking cues from you, and they're there to support you and things like that. So
mhm.
you're the main focal point of the lesson. And yeah, I had to get over that very quickly. So that was a good experience because that made me get into sort of the habit of being comfortable in front of people and not worrying too much about being nervous. And then after that, I went into teaching younger kids. So from the age of two, I think two and a half, up to 6 years old. And that was basically phonics. I was teaching them how to pronounce the alphabet and the phonetical sounds in English, focusing heavily on reading and being able to speak without the problems that a lot of Japanese people have. So, for example, the L and the R problem that they do have in Japan, trying to focus on making them sound as natural as possible. And then I moved into more of like the business side of things and became a business English teacher. Stayed with the company for about 9 years. But I moved into teaching a manufacturing company in-house. So I was the English teacher of the engineers, the managers, the president at the time. And I was basically in the company and teaching their workers when they need to go on business trips and things like that. So I've taught lots of different lessons, yes.
Lots of different profiles, from a school to little tiny toddlers and kids to then adults and business English.
Absolutely.
Just going over a few phrases you use, which were nice. First, daunting. I love this adjective, and it's another way of saying like intimidating. So your first English teaching experience was with 30 little Japanese kids, and I imagine that this was very daunting. It was intimidating, and you had to get over it quite quickly. You had to kind of overcome this difficulty. So you can get over an illness if you recover from it, or you can get over a difficult scenario or situation if you are overcoming it and you're coming out the other way in a better, more positive way, I guess. It sounds like you were thrown in at the deep end. You were thrown into a difficult scenario, a difficult situation, and it was sink or swim, really.
There we go. Yeah.
It seemed like you swam.
Yeah, I doggy paddled.
Exactly. Just to survive.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It was sink or swim, and I think that helped me in a way. I think a lot of people might, a good word here, might crumble under that kind of situation and that kind of pressure. But I feel for me that was the best way for me to be put into that kind of environment, because I'm one of these people that if I have to do it, I do it. If if I think about it too much, then I probably stress about it a little bit more than I need to, and those types of nervous sort of energy come into play, and I didn't have time for any of that. So yeah, for me, it was probably the best thing that happened, actually.
Excellent. And then during this time, of course, you were living in Japan. You're not living there anymore. So are there any things that you miss about living in Japan?
The one thing that I'm sure many people will probably say that is amazing about Japan, and that is the train system. The public transport is just phenomenal, because if the train time says it's going to arrive at 6:21, it will arrive at 6:21. In England, it barely arrives.
It's always delayed, and you never know how long it's going to be delayed for, and then out of nowhere it might be cancelled, and you're like, what the hell?
Yeah. I mentioned that to many people, actually, and that they were shocked at trains being cancelled. Like, they couldn't understand why the trains in England were cancelled. Yeah, they get cancelled sometimes, and they're like, really? Why? And my honest feeling is that sometimes we don't know. They just cancel out of the blue, and you're just left wondering what's happened. And yeah, Japanese people could not understand this. It was foreign to them.
Oh, wow. So the best thing about Japan is the train system. And related to this, I'm sure there are more things, but
Yeah.
first thing that comes to mind now is like the images I think that went viral of a video at like Japan, Tokyo, maybe rush hour, and people are like fighting and nudging each other to try and get on the train. And then you have like the, I don't know, conductor or workers there, like literally pushing them on. Did you ever experience anything remotely similar to this?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
It comes with the nature of working in Japan, in Tokyo especially. That's rush hour. That's when it is mega busy and everybody's going to work, and it can be horrible, to be honest. I don't like that part of the train system, and
Yeah.
it's just claustrophobic, and it feels like you've got no space to move around because everybody is packed in to the car, the carriage. Again, a good idiom there, packed in like sardines. And yeah, it feels very uncomfortable. So yeah, I have experienced that, but outside of rush hour, they're pretty good. I would say that that's much more comfortable and more relaxing to travel on the trains when it's outside of rush hour.
Yeah, I bet 100%. People are packed in like sardines, as you said. Now, you're living in the Philippines.
Yes.
I think of Paradise Islands, beautiful, beautiful places. It's made up of like, I don't know, thousands of little islands.
Over 7,000.
So tell me basically, what is life like where you are in the Philippines?
It's really the polar opposite to Japan. Is a good way.
No trains.
There are no trains, yeah. So you've got Japan where everybody's busy. Everybody's just rushing around, and it feels like there's not enough time in the day. Where the Philippines, it's so much more chilled out. Like people are more relaxed, and one amazing thing that I like about the Philippines is that majority of people, not everybody, but majority of people they're very smiley. They're very, I would say, welcoming. And yeah, it's a much more relaxed way of life. Very, very different to what I lived when I was in Japan, of course.
Oh, perfect. And have you managed to travel around to different islands? Because it seemed like such a huge place.
Yeah. So this time we haven't. We're just kind of settling down, getting our bearings sorted, and making sure that everything is, in place and whatnot. And I think that's taken some time. Now we're kind of settled where we are. That we're going to then look at exploring a few more interesting places. We have been to a few places previously. With my wife, I went to a nice island called Palawan. If anybody wants to go to just an amazing island with beautiful sea and just picturesque scenery, Palawan's a great place to go, and I highly recommend it, of course. Where we are at the moment, we're living in near to a city called Dumaguete, and it's very chilled out. It's quite near to Cebu, so we have been over to Cebu before. A couple of years ago, we swam with whale sharks. A couple of years ago, I would say before pandemic, so 5 years ago. I lose track
Since
of
the
how
pandemic,
many.
it's all the same,
I lose track of the years, to be honest. So yeah, we swam with whale sharks, and recently we went to a small island called Apple Island, which is only 30 minutes by boat, and they have a lot of sea turtles, like green turtles over there. Um, and it's a great place for snorkeling or scuba diving, things like that. So yeah, it's nice. It's a great place to live.
It sounds incredible. Like I would love to see sea turtles and loads of different fish. I'm not sure how I'd get on with swimming with sharks. I'm a little bit of a
Ah.
chicken, so like I get scared when I go on like roller coasters. I
Okay.
have a bit of vertigo as well, and then when I see any kind of creepy crawly or animal that could sting me or bite me, I start to panic a little bit. I imagine there's a lot of insects and creepy crawlies in the Philippines, and yeah, swimming
Yes.
with sharks. Were you scared?
These are whale sharks.
Okay.
So
It's still got
they're
sharks in the name.
there we go. Yeah. So there's no need to panic with these guys because they actually don't have any teeth.
Okay.
Um, yeah, they're interesting creatures because they just they're like a vacuum. They're like a Hoover. They suck the food into their bodies, and they don't really have anything to chew. So humans are not on their list of things to eat, which is
Okay.
great for us.
Very
Uh,
reassuring.
yes, but I can understand why people do feel a bit apprehensive about them because shark is in their name and people are scared of what they think, and that sharks are quite intimidating as well. So, but no, these guys were really yeah, really docile, really nice creatures to watch. Actually, they're very, I would say, they're quite fluid in their movement,
Uh-huh.
and yeah, just quite amazing to see up close, really, which is cool. How about in Brussels? Are there any interesting places or things to do there?
Yeah. So with Brussels and I'd say Belgium more so than Brussels to be precise, because Brussels, to be honest, isn't maybe the prettiest city in Europe or the world. Of course, you have nice places, you have nice parks, you have some old buildings which are very beautiful. But generally speaking, Brussels is more of a place to live and visit for a weekend, perhaps with your friends rather than a place to go specifically to do sightseeing. But it's a very small country, so it's very easy to visit plenty of different cities. The trains
Right.
are also pretty good,
There we
so
go.
thank God. But for anyone thinking about visiting Belgium, I would definitely say to visit Brussels for sure. You can have good beer, good chocolate, good waffles, mussels, and French fries, chips, which
Yeah.
it's a big lie. French fries are not French; they're actually from Belgium.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Yeah, true fact, true fact. But Brussels is cool, but I think Bruges is
Mm,
much more beautiful. It's
okay.
literally like walking around in a theme park almost because everywhere you look, it's beautiful. The buildings are amazing. They do have a little bit of a problem with tourism because
Okay.
people know that it's very beautiful. So it
Mm,
feels like everybody's there and nobody actually lives there.
right.
So that's the difference between Bruges and Brussels. And then in between the two, which is on the same train line, is Ghent. And
Ah,
Ghent is kind of the perfect middle ground between the two cities because it's just as beautiful as Bruges, but there are less tourists. And it's
okay.
slightly bigger than Bruges, but not as big as Brussels.
Yeah.
So I definitely recommend visiting all three of these places and maybe Antwerp as well,
Mm,
which is at the north of the country and close to the Netherlands. So if
okay.
anybody is interested in visiting Belgium or you've already visited it, let me know in the comments and I'd be more than happy to give some recommendations and chat about your experience if you've already been.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Have you been before?
No, I've been to the Netherlands. And when you were describing when you're describing Bruges, I think a similar experience I may have had was when I visited Prague
Uh-huh.
in Czech Republic. It the buildings, the architecture was just beautiful. Like everywhere I went, it was really just amazing to see the style of architecture that was used. And I was impressed when I went to Prague actually. So yeah, maybe a similar experience in that sense.
Exactly,
But I
100%.
would love to visit Belgium. I really want to visit Belgium actually.
I mean, it's so easy. If you're in England or the UK at any point,
Mm,
then personally, I fly usually Manchester to Brussels, and the
mm.
flights are so cheap. Like you have flights every single day with Ryanair, maybe not the best airline, but for like 50 quid return,
Wow.
it's a bargain. And
Yeah.
if you're based in the south of England, then you don't even have to fly because you have the Channel Tunnel and you can get the train directly from Brussels all the way to London. And it's
Oh.
not too expensive, more expensive than 50 quid return.
Mm,
But if you're scared of flying or anything like that, then know that you don't have to if you want to go to Paris or Brussels from London.
perfect. Ah,
Top tip.
interesting. Yeah, that's a good one actually. If I if and when I come back to England and I want to spend a little bit of time and travel around Europe a little bit, I think it'll be nice to be able to, take the family to a few different places, not just England, but other places in Europe as well. So yeah, it's a
I know.
good idea actually.
100%. Now, let's speak about your content, your videos.
Hmm.
When did you start posting videos online, and what was the motivation back then?
So I dabbled with a few videos here and there, probably going on, let's say 3 years ago, 2 to 3 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And then I started taking it seriously about a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I started focusing and being more consistent because I posted a few videos, but sporadically. I didn't do it as frequently as I should have. And the idea was to generally do something different because my whole teaching experience was in person classes, one-to-one group classes, things like that, which I loved, no problem at all. But I wanted to challenge myself and see if I could do something outside of my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, okay, maybe videos, maybe live streaming, things like that might be a good thing. So I was thinking about just, basically adding a feather to my cap, really, and
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
things like that. And yeah, that was the motivation behind it. But I've only really seriously focused on it for about a year and a half.
Okay, excellent. And many of your videos that you record are with your daughter. So,
Yeah.
what's that dynamic like?
Ah, it's good. Like I started off doing a lot of solo content, which is good. It's fun to do solo content, but the problem that I had was that I wanted to do more conversational stuff. Um, and I did try to do like green screen and playing different characters of myself,
Yeah.
which I did enjoy. I like that a lot, but I wanted to have that natural aspect of two people actually having a conversation and it being two different people. So my daughter is someone who loves performing. So I was like,
She's
I
the
may as
star
well
of the
get her.
show.
Oh, she's more popular than myself, so I don't mind. No, I'm not arguing with that. But yeah, I just thought I may as well just try and go for it with her being involved. And yeah, she's in majority of my videos actually, and it's fun because I think at the end of the day, I get to make content and memories at the same time, because a lot of the things that we do, we film where we are at the time or what's happened during that day or things that we've kind of talked about or thought of. So we're actually documenting memories at the same time. So for me, it's kind of like an archive of memories, as well as producing, hopefully, important content for people to learn from as well.
Excellent. And I guess another advantage that it has is that you're kind of teaching her English at the same time, because if you lived in Japan and then now in Philippines, English is kind of her mother tongue, but she's not surrounded by English people. So you're teaching her at the same time.
Yeah, I would say that she is probably a native speaker of English, just because we've always spoken English at home. My wife speaks to her in English, and we always have conversations in English. She speaks to my mum a lot, practically every other day on, Messenger and things like that. So she speaks to a lot of British English people. But yeah, you're right. Like I think I do help her in some ways of, she understands how to use certain words or formulate certain sentences. But yeah, she's much, much better than I would say someone who didn't have access to speaking English. So yeah, it works well. I'm not disappointed with it, of course.
No, you're killing 2, 3, 4 birds with one stone. It's awesome. Now, just returning to the Philippines, and I love speaking about food all the time, and I'm not very familiar with Filipino food.
Okay.
What's it like? What are some traditional dishes?
So the national dish is adobo. I'm sure that a few people have heard of adobo. It's usually pork and chicken. You can mix it together, or you can have pork or chicken, either one. Potatoes, and carrots, and a few other things that are put in, with rice, and that's the national dish. It's really, really nice. I'm doing it a disservice by describing that way, because I don't know how to cook it. However, that is not my favorite. I would say that another dish called menudo is a favorite of mine, and just because the flavor and the taste is a little bit different. And interestingly, like, Filipino food is often sweeter than Western food. For example, if you have pasta over here, it tastes a little bit sweeter than what you would get in Italy or England, etc. I'm not a great lover of having sort of savory food a little bit sweeter. I prefer it more on the savory side. So for me, menudo is one of the dishes that I like, because it's not so sweet, and that's why I like it a lot, actually.
It's interesting because you can tell the Spanish influence and the Spanish previous colony, because adobo and adobar in Spanish is to marinate. So it's basically saying like chicken or pork marinated in what spices and herbs, I don't know. And then the other weird thing is the pasta, because there's also a fast food restaurant which is from the Philippines, and it's now started expanding all over the world, called Jollibee.
Yes.
And it's famous because they have fried chicken. Apparently, that's really good. I've never tried it myself. But the other signature dish is this spaghetti with a really sweet tomato sauce that I'm sure Italian people have their opinions on. But yeah, have you tried Jollibee?
I have, yeah. Jollibee's great. I think that there's a lot of mixed feelings, mixed results, but what you have to remember is that I think with Jollibee, it's part and parcel of the culture in the Philippines. Just as I know that in other countries, there's going to be their local fast food restaurants that they like,
Yeah.
and it caters for the Filipino taste, basically. And it's part of their childhood. They grow up like having parties at Jollibee. When somebody's birthday, they go to Jollibee. It's like it's that tradition of growing up as a kid and enjoying, a treat. So I think that's why a lot of people still really like it here, because it's ingrained in the culture, of course, but it's not the same tastes as, like you would say, like Italian people would probably frown upon that kind of dish because it's not traditionally Italian at all.
Yeah.
But the fried chicken is fantastic. And yeah, I must admit, that is very, very, very good. And it's relatively inexpensive as well. That's why I think a lot of people like it, because you've got other fast food restaurants such as McDonald's and KFC, but the prices of those are much higher than Jollibee. So
Mhm.
Jollibee is by far the most popular fast food restaurant in the Philippines. And it's definitely a Filipino cultural aspect.
An acquired taste, but fried chicken is always good. So
Yeah, oh yeah.
you can't
Oh
go
yeah.
wrong there.
Not
And
at all.
just going over a couple of expressions used again. First, part and parcel. So
Yes.
Jollibee is part and parcel of Filipino culture, which is basically something that is ingrained in the culture. It is intertwined with the culture.
Mm,
And another lovely expression you used was to be frowned upon. Right now,
mm.
I'm frowning, and if something is frowned upon, it is generally uh, it's not approved by the people. People don't like it. People don't agree with it. It is frowned upon.
Yeah, nice.
Awesome. Uh, anyway, we're gonna call it a day in a minute or two, but let's just finish off with a would you rather question.
All
So
right,
I have a list.
great.
Jordan can see the list. I'm gonna
Mhm.
ask him a would you rather question, and once he's answered, he's gonna ask me a would you rather question. So
Awesome.
I'll kick us off. I'll get us started. Okay. Would you rather see your future? Actually, no. No. Maybe I'll change that one. But let me think. You can tell that this is very natural
Sure.
because I'm improvising as we're going. Okay, for example, hmm. I've got one. Good one. Would you rather be on a survival reality show
Hmm.
or be on a dating game show? And of course, this is in 15 years ago, before
Hmm.
you got married.
Um, survival
Yeah.
reality show. Because one of my favorite TV shows is Survivor. I watch pretty much every single season. I like it. I think it's a test of not just your ability to survive the elements, but it also makes you socially aware of yourself. And you've got to be able to communicate with so many different people, and you've got to be able to persuade them. And sometimes I say this in a good way, manipulate them to do what you want to do in
Uh-huh.
terms of voting people out. Um, I like that kind of challenge. I think that would be really interesting and it'll be quite fun. Although I don't particularly like the idea of going hungry for so long, because generally they don't they don't have a lot of food.
And you
That's
have
one
to
thing.
like hunt and fish
Yeah.
and have rice and beans all the time. Ugh,
True. Yeah, but that one, definitely I would choose that one. Cool.
awesome. Well,
All
the
right.
ball is in your court.
Awesome.
Over to you.
Let me have a look here.
Decisions.
I like this one. Would you rather have the ability to read minds or be invisible?
Okay. I think both of these like superpowers are
Hmm.
a little bit manipulative as well. If you are able to do both of these things, then you're probably going to be very tempted to do illegal or immoral things. But that being said, I think that I would rather have more of a mental power than a physical power. So if I'm able to read people's minds and I'm able to turn that on and off, that's the key thing. Because I wouldn't want to read everybody's mind all the time, because then I'd go mad, I'd go crazy, I'd go nuts, I'd go bananas. But if I could like switch it on and be like, okay, right now I want to know what Donald Trump is thinking. Right now, I want to know what my girlfriend is thinking. Then I think it'd be really useful and cool. And of course, you could use it to your advantage if you have a negotiation, an argument, or whatever. So I think the possibilities are endless. Whereas with being invisible, of course, you can rob a bank, maybe you can steal different things from different people. You can be in places where you shouldn't be. Maybe you don't have access to normally to find out what's going on. But I think I'd rather have the ability to read people's mind on demand. So
Fair
when I
enough.
want to only.
Yeah, that switch is the key part there, isn't it?
Exactly. Now, let
Cool.
us know if you're watching this and you've made it to the end of this conversation. What would you rather have? Would you rather have the ability to read people's minds or to be invisible? And would you rather go on a survival show or a dating show? Let us know in the comments. And on that note, Jordan, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much
Pleasure,
for
mate.
being
Thank you
here
very
and
much.
having a chat.
Yeah, it's been an awesome experience. So thank you very much indeed. Hopefully we get to do it again sometime.
Oops. Fingers crossed, fingers
There
crossed.
we go.
But yeah, thank you, Jordan. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you in the next episode. Ta-ra!
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and see you next time.